A number of my recent key training rides have been what I call breakout rides. A breakout ride is where you have significant improvement over the last time that you rode. Today's ride showed me that it was time to pay the piper. I've got to rest. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. Even though I was doing the job on one of these early short climbs, I had the feeling that something was a little bit off. For the past 2.5 weeks, I've been pretty much putting everything into my allocated 2 hard training rides a week. An example is what you're seeing now. I put in a big effort, then I have to respond to someone else's big effort. Doing this hard ride after hard ride week after week accumulates fatigue. Proper training plan, rest, and sleep will help stave off the negative effects. And sleep, or rather the lack of it, is exacerbating the situation that I'm in. Every once in a while, I'll have a bad night of sleep, and sometimes it'll be 2 nights in a row. That was the case just recently for me. Then I also have the problem that if I'm training late, and especially if I'm doing a hard workout late, I'm going to be amped, and it's going to be a while before I can get to sleep. We are now topping another hill, and I'm still on the wheel of a younger, lighter, stronger teammate Terry. However, things are going to start to change soon. Soon I'll be hitting my first of 3 failure points. My first failure point came here on bubblegum. I felt like I was in deficit, but I came into this climb strong and I was hoping to maintain that strength all the way up so that the others weren't going to attack me. If one of them did attack me, I wasn't confident that I could go with them like I could have the week before. As it turns out, Terry was the only one behind me, which I know now as I'm processing this video. And I was trying to stay with them, and I'm going over into the 500 pluses and wattage to try and stay up with them, but that doesn't last long. I just don't have the reserves to do that. After a short rolling regroup in which my reserves got to reconstitute themselves a little bit, we were off again. And I was doing pretty well. Teammate Robert lost contact, so it was just Terry and myself. This section of road had a lot of steep, short power climbs, where we would challenge each other, such as this one. As often would be the case, Terry would jump ahead, sometimes gapping me, sometimes not. In either case, I have to apply extra power either to stay with him or to fill that gap again. This time I'm able to fill that gap, and that's quite an accomplishment. And so far, I'm still feeling good. And there's a little ways to go, another real big stinger hill that we're approaching now before we get to our turnaround point. I've been doing just about 300 watts just to stay on Terry's wheel. Enter failure point number 2. I just don't have the gas, I don't have the reserves to stay with him, and now I gotta back off. After regrouping at the turnaround point, we headed back, and as we're heading back, we're now heading into the wind again. On the way out here, before we got on this road, we had a crosswind to deal with, so it was a windy day. This is the biggest climb of this section of the road, so I'm hitting this climb hard too. I'm hoping that I can maintain that. Again, as last time, I want to go so hard that I discourage any type of attacks. My plan works just fine as long as I'm going between 400 and 500 watts. But once that wattage starts to drop, and take a look at the upper left-hand corner, 300s and the 200s, Terry is gone. And in fact, sprinter and non-climber Robert goes by me too. Now I don't consider this a failure point. I get my wattage back up again, and I'm trying to crawl back up, so I'm not redlining, I haven't died out. The others sure are going strong, including sprinter non-climber Robert. Robert does eventually slow down, and we each roll into the rest stop where we get some cold drinks because this is a fairly hot day. While I started from my house at 2:30, I met the others at 4 o'clock for our 90-minute to 100-minute race pace extravaganza. Resting again got to reconstitute my reserves a bit. Speaking of reserves, they work when they're there and they don't when they're not. So now we're heading into Crybaby Hill, not Tulsa's Crybaby Hill, but our own Fresno, California Crybaby Hill. If I can make it to the top of this, being on Terry's wheel, I'll consider that a nice win. And 30 seconds later, I'm still connected, as long as I'm pushing over 480 watts. On that one, my reserves were there for me. After a few more dips and risers, we are now on the finishing straight, coming into the sprint. I can tell my reserves are almost sucked dry. Robert takes over, and there's still quite a ways to go to the final sprint. We have a pretty strong crosswind coming from the right. After a right turn past the finish, I'll have to go about 19 miles straight into the wind to get home. I am not even thinking about where to start my sprint because I'm having such a hard time hanging on. Robert takes a little bit of a jump. That creates a gap. I'm trying to fill that gap and I can't. I'm just dying out. Terry goes past me, and then pretty much this is how we finish. It is time for me to rest. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. Always remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.